Joining me now to talk about how the community is dealing with this shocking aftermath of those shootings is RafManji. He is a Christchurch City Councillor. Raf, I cannot begin to imagine what the past day and a half have been like for you. Let me begin by asking about the moment you found out about the shooting. Where were you? What were you told? What happened?
Thank you, Natasha. I was in actually a local cafe around the corner from the council building and just sort of started to see stuff come up on social media about an incident. And of course, you know, social media has some very positive pieces to it, and information spread quite quickly. And within half an hour, it was clear there was some kind of shooting incident. And probably within an hour, it looked like it was quite serious. And at that point, offices and council buildings and schools went into lockdown, and people started to move out of the central city. And then, you know, obviously we found out worse news as the day progressed. And it's been a pretty shattering time for the city and for the community. And, you know, we're still getting to grips with the outcomes.
That word shattering is so powerful and I'm sure so completely appropriate. Tell me about the mood, because the chaos of that particular moment has ended, but now what? Now how does Christchurch come back together and move forward from this?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough. I mean, we went through this as a city 8 years ago in the February the 22nd earthquake, where the city was devastated, and it had an eerily similar feel to that yesterday as the city emptied out. But of course, that was a natural disaster, and it affected the whole community. This has been a premeditated terror attack on a small part of our community, and I think that is going to be quite difficult for us to process. You know, the big global issues around radicalization, social media, gun control, all these things are issues, but a small part of our community has been attacked, and we need to rally around that community and make clear that we won't tolerate this. But it's shocking for us. This is not something you expect in New Zealand. Look, we're like Canada. We're generally good people. We all get on. We have a smallish Islamic community here, maybe 4,000 or 5,000 people, but spread between 20 to 30 different ethnicities. We have a lot of refugees, so they've come in from all over the world. And everyone tends to get on reasonably well, and people go about their business. And, this kind of attack on that part of our community is intolerable, but it's also going to be very challenging for us how we do respond to that as a community and how we really focus on some of the quite challenging issues that lie behind it.
So it sounds like Christchurch and New Zealand are going to have some uncomfortable conversations that they didn't think they had to in the past.
Well, I think in a way that this feels like it's come from outside of Christchurch. The alleged perpetrator who has been charged today in court was from Australia. He was actually living in a city outside Christchurch, Dunedin. And you just kind of wonder, we don't know yet why this has happened in our city. Was it a soft target? Well, that's New Zealand. We don't have a lot of security concerns here. And so that remains to be seen. But we know from, what happens around the world that this can happen anywhere. And the radicalization of young men is a problem that we have to deal with as a society.
So let's talk about that, because it was so unexpected, certainly, even by your own words in Christchurch. When we talk about the climate in Europe, we talk about this tension between Europeans and predominantly Muslim migrants that are coming in, especially since 2015. We've had huge waves of migrants who happen to be Muslims coming from North Africa, Middle East, South Asia. We've seen tensions in parts of the United States when it comes to this particular issue. What is the tension, or is there no tension? As you said, it's a relatively small community, Muslim community in New Zealand. Have you, in the past few years, seen this tension increasing?
Look, I mean, this is a difficult one. Probably members of the community might say they have experienced higher levels of, let's say, prejudice and Islamophobia. I think there's no doubt that over the years that has increased. We shouldn't duck that. But in terms of here, I mean, we've just started retaking refugees into Christchurch for the first time since the earthquake. We had an arrival of Syrian refugees. So it's not generally been a major problem in New Zealand. And remember also, we have a Mana Whenua, our Māori indigenous people are here, and they're very welcoming to all nations and all people. So it's we have a different cultural makeup here in New Zealand, which is not the same as Europe and the US. Each country has its own challenges. I mean, we look at the US often in horror at the things that their politicians say about different communities. You know, we're stunned. So we consider ourselves quite far removed from that, as obviously, as we sort of think Canadians do as well. Generally decent, tolerant society. We have low levels of crime, high levels of transparency, low levels of corruption, generally good outcomes for most of our population. So for this thing to happen here is a shock. To say that we shouldn't believe that it could happen, no. I mean, obviously these things can happen. You just don't expect it to happen in a country like New Zealand.
Okay, let's move away from the political aspect of all of this, and let's talk about what is going to happen next in the community. We just spoke a few moments ago to a young woman who's organized a vigil in Auckland. We've got vigils taking place in the city where I am, in Toronto, just a few blocks away from here. So people around the world and around your country are coming together. What is happening in Christchurch to sort of heal and move forward?
Well, first of all, we appreciate the outpouring of support from around the world. That's something that is very helpful at this time. At the moment, we are having discussions around what we could do in the city. Obviously, there are still some security concerns around. At the moment, there is a place in our local botanic gardens where flowers are being placed and lots of people are congregating around there. Our focus really at the moment is the immediate needs of the affected communities, the families who have lost members, people who are still injured in hospital, the burials. I mean, that is a challenging issue for us. Islamic burials tend to take place quite quickly.
Within 24 hours.
Yeah, customs within, in terms of preparing the bodies. So, there are coroner issues. I mean, that we're trying to work through a lot of that stuff and work out where these people will be buried. How to support the community. The Prime Minister is just arrived in Christchurch, I believe, and is visiting the local refugee centre. So really, we're trying to plan for dealing with that immediate aftermath, whilst obviously there's all these other conversations that are going on. We just need to really focus on supporting the community. And there's no doubt the people of Christchurch are reaching out and opening their arms and their hearts to their communities as well.
Councillor Manji, I just have a few more seconds left, so I suppose I just want to hear from you. How are you feeling? How are you doing as the world is watching this situation unfold?
No, I mean, sometimes you just think, not again. We had the earthquakes, but then we had floods, then we had fires, and now this. The mental health of the city is fragile. The children were locked down in schools all yesterday afternoon. There's a sense of wariness. There's a sense that we'd recovered from the earthquakes. Our city is being rebuilt. It looks fantastic, and now we have to deal with this. But this is real life. We can't duck these issues, and I think we just have to, as we are, reasonably good in New Zealand at having an open conversation about this, and challenge ourselves to try and work out how we progress from here. Obviously you mentioned gun law change, and how we support communities to live, purposeful lives, and live free from violence.
Sir, we are going to have to leave it there. Thank you so much. We send you lots of support. RafManji is a Christchurch City Councillor, and that's where he joined us from.